On today's show, I have Tine Schenck, who is part of Music Weeklies Challenges, which is a weekly challenge to make some music centered around some kind of theme that they give you. So you get a prompt every week, and a whole community of people also trying to make music around that prompt. It's a very cool community of support and encouragement, and it's great to see all the different submissions that happen off of one simple prompt. On March 4th, I will be providing the prompt for the week. So be sure to head over to Music Weekly's Challenges on Twitter so you can see what the challenge will be to make music for that week. Hope you can join. And of course, I invite you to check out my website, brianfunk.com, where you can get all sorts of Ableton Live materials, tutorials, listen to more episodes of the Music Production Podcast, and maybe you want to join our community in the Music Production Club, where you get all of my latest work every single time it's released before anybody else, as well as access to our really excellent community. That's brianfunk.com/MPC. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have a return guest because the first time was so good, we decided to do it again. It's Tine Schenck. She is coming in from, actually, kind of forget where you come from.
From Norway.
You're coming from Norway. Oslo, was it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So coming in at the nighttime, I'm in the middle of the day, and we had a great talk last time we spoke on episode 169. And Tine runs or co-runs the Music Weeklies Challenge, which is a really awesome community of people that every week get together and make some music around a theme. And how long has that been going on now, Tine?
We've been at it since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we had a 3-year anniversary last year, so yes.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So yeah.
For anything to run that long.
It's been 3.5 years.
You know, congratulations on that. I know it's a lot of work consistently.
Yeah, but thankfully we are a good team of 4 people who take turns doing different things. So it's okay. We are having a great time doing it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And we see the community grow all the time. So I'd like to welcome all the listeners to come and join us over. It's Twitter based, so we're usually there on Twitter and at Music Weeklies.
Yeah, and after our last talk, I helped come up with an idea, really, just about it. And I was really impressed on just like the level of interaction with the community, how supportive they were, how many people participated, and how, you know, like sometimes it can be just like I make my music and you all listen to it, and you never hear from me again. But it wasn't like that. Everybody seemed to like be going back and forth with each other. So it wasn't just this kind of one-way street. It was the give and take, and I really enjoyed it a lot and heard so much great music, and still check in on the Music Weeklies and see what's going on. And I love how you guys are able to come up with so many interesting topics all the time.
Oh, yeah, thank you. We have one mastermind who's in charge of the themes, but we have quite often we have some guest hosts that help us come up with different things. So, like the one we did together, you and I, was the Junk Drawer Challenge, which was great fun. And after that, we discovered that we got a few new participants because of the podcast. So,
oh, no way.
Thank you for that. That was great. And to all the listeners, thank you for dropping in on us if you do. So, yeah, no, it's a wonderful community, and yeah.
If anyone listening ever has trouble coming up with something to make music about or some direction, this is really just a great community to see and explore, because there's always some prompt, some challenge of some type. And then you also get to see what everyone else makes of it. And that's a lot of fun, because there's, from these limitations that you basically present to people, there's these endless variety of interpretations of what that can be.
Yeah,
we were kind of talking a little bit before we started about the importance of like restrictions for creativity. And I guess that's become a big part of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I sometimes don't find the time to do the challenges, but I do miss it because it's so nice to have, like, here's the thing, and you have a week usually. It's every Friday, if people are interested, every Friday, 8 o'clock UK time in the evening. And there is a new theme, and then people are there like, oh, yay, ready to go. And then some people push out the thing the next day. And then you see like a slow trickle during the week of people coming up with pieces. And then, yeah, it's so, as you said, it's so lovely to see what people make of it and how they interpret the restrictions as well. And it's also, I want to stress that it's for everyone. We don't have any auditions for Music Weekly's challenges, regardless of level. If you just want to play your guitar into a mic, that's totally fine. The only thing is, it's a composition challenge, so that's or a music making challenge, which we sometimes do SFX or sound effects challenges as well. So yeah, it's the whole thing about not distinguishing between level of musicianship makes it really worthwhile for me. I came into it pretty early on in my return to music making, and it was so nice. It was such a boost to step into a community where there are people who really listen to your music and also let you know what they liked about it. And then sometimes we can do some constructive criticism, and you can learn. And you also, it's nice to get to know other people who are doing the same thing as you, making music in a DAW usually, because they're not always that easy to come by. We just sit here on our computers individually often, and then it's so nice to be able to talk to other people. And especially when I was new at using a DAW, I'm classically trained, so I was taught composing on paper, and it never really connected with me. So I was new to the DAW, and it was nice. I mean, I say DAW, I mean DAW for people who don't say it the same way. And it was nice to have somewhere to go and say, do you guys also have no clue what you're doing with mixing and mastering? And then everyone was like, yeah, or no, I know what I'm doing. And yeah, so it's really like if you like to make music or you want to try to make music, it's the best place to just churn out something. And we don't have any, no one is going to sit there and judge your piece because they're all, I mean, at least amongst the participants, because everyone feels the same insecurities in that sense. So, and there is a lot of imposter syndrome out there, and this is a good way to counter that a little bit, to just be welcoming regardless.
I think having a community to turn to is so important because, for one, you mentioned even just getting people to like listen to your music is a challenge. Like maybe like the first few times you make a song, your friends and family will tune in and like, oh wow, look, they'll share it, they're proud of you. But after a while, they're like, oh, you made another song, okay.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
The likes and the retweets and the comments and the reposts start to dwindle. I always laugh with some friends of mine about how like you post this thing you worked on real hard and you put your heart and soul into and barely gets noticed, and then my dog chasing her tail is like the most interacted post of the year when these like summaries of your activity start showing up. So to have people that are there that will listen and participate, for me especially, has been so helpful, and it really makes a big difference. Whether it's when I do my class for Berkeley, all these people doing their work together, there are certain semesters when people really start interacting, and it's beautiful, really, because they're all struggling, they're all trying to figure out how to do these projects, and you have all these people helping each other and growing. And as the person that listens to that, I get so much out of it every semester. It's never the same. We do the music production club that I run has a Discord, and we just finished during January, and there was so much interaction. It was so inspiring, and there were so many days I didn't want to make music that I did anyway because of that. And a lot of people had the same feeling. And Music Weeklies is another great example. I'm really surprised how positive it's been for me with my club and when I go into the Music Weeklies. Do you have any idea why that is? Because it's not like there's like really much in the way of like rules as far as like, you know, anyone could do anything they want, really. It's on Twitter too. So, you know, how Twitter can be, it's notoriously dangerous.
Yeah.
But
I think
Music Weeklies has been great. Like, I've never seen even any drop of negativity, and all of the criticism, as you said, is so constructive and positive and helpful.
that's been our focus from the beginning. And Clément, who started the whole thing, in the beginning, he was alone. The first 6 months, he just did it on his own. And he diligently posted positive feedback to all the submissions and was really, really good at doing that. And then a couple of other people picked it up. It started with Andrew and I, who were the first to join the team as well, but we'd been in the challenge for like 6 months until this point. And Andrew then had picked up on Clément's comments, so he started doing it too. And then I saw that these two were doing it, so I started doing it. And then it just started rolling. Because in the beginning, everyone was a stranger to each other, so you don't always know what to say to a stranger who's posting their music. So the fact that Clément went ahead and did that was very valuable. And we just made like a precedent. Is that the word? Precedent?
Yeah.
For
paved
doing
the way
that.
and set the tone.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that was what made people actually come back to the challenge. So it ebbs and flows a little bit, because sometimes there are very many new people and then they don't really know what the customs are in the group. But if they return, they'll see that that's how we work. And then sometimes we have like, we had an anniversary challenge last year and there were like hundreds of submissions. And then you also, of course, don't have the time to write back to everyone or even listen to everything. But people who are there we know that everyone is vulnerable in a way. You put something out that you quickly made during a week. And most of us are not audio engineers, so we don't know how to necessarily master it to perfection or something. So yeah, it's just about catching people where they need to be caught, let's say, in this, that you actually made music. That's great. So this is wonderful that you're doing it. We're proud of you for doing this. Great job. And that's also what keeps people coming back, we think. And now we have a fourth in the team as well, and he also has been very instrumental in building this, as has a lot of the other people who were there. Some people are still there from 3.5 years ago. And some other people come and go, and it's a great little community. But yeah, we did focus a lot on the positive feedback loop, let's say, because you see all the time, music Twitter can be really friendly and supportive, and then other parts of music Twitter can just be mindless promo streams of some people have just an account to retweet their own content all the time, and they never partake in any conversation, for instance. So it's a matter of finding the right corner, I guess, of music Twitter. So yeah. It's
really cool to get that going, because like you said, there can be that like endless just promo thing, and and that's kind of what it feels like sometimes, what you have to do. But it does seem like the interaction and the actual building of relationships with people is really the way to go. There was a website, it must have been 15 years ago. It was like early-ish days of the internet, early 2000s probably. It was called GarageBand. And it was nothing to do with Apple's GarageBand. And on this site, you would post your music, and people can review it, but you don't get reviewed until you do a number of reviews yourself. You had to do like 5 or 10 songs, and you had to listen to at least like a minute of the song and offer some sort of feedback. And it was great. I found people's music that I never heard before that I really liked, and the overall just energy was so positive. And it just kind of showed me, I guess, that's the way to do it, And it's the same thing if you're playing live music, like to don't just play your set and then leave. Like you have to stay and watch the other bands and interact and be part of the community, because really what you're trying to do is be part of something. You're trying to be part of people's lives with your music. You're trying to share it with them. Yep. So to do that in all aspects really does help with that particular goal.
Yeah, and I mean, this is also what I get from listening to your podcast, or this podcast, that you're very supportive and motivational, let's say. Listening to your podcast is like, yes, you can do it. It's like a pep talk. And also with the conversations you have with other people who make music, it's a nice focus. And the music, if you look at the music industry at large, it's such an impersonal space with so many competitors all the time. Of course, depending where you're based, I'm sure the US is way worse than Norway, which is a very small environment and industry. But it still can be very competitive. And then it's so nice to have these corners where it's just like, let's just come back to the actual music instead of all the stuff around it all the time. Yeah. And so thank you for cheering us on. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's the ethos of it is exactly what I believe in, and it's those types of communities, whether it was online or even in real life, or there's some little scene that sometimes picks up where you play. Those are the things that have like helped motivate me and kept me going, because you are kind of signing up for a lot of heartache if you're a musician and a songwriter and producing your own songs. You said there's a lot of vulnerability in it, and especially that you're doing it every week and you only have a week. And it's something I've learned on the podcast, that everybody goes through that, even the people that, you think have it all figured out, the professionals, everybody struggles with this, and the imposter thing, and it comes in waves. Sometimes I feel sometimes like a superhero, and then other times like I don't even understand anything. I can't figure out how to do anything right. So it is nice to share that with people and commiserate and help each other through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I know tons of professionals who have imposter syndrome, and they have no reason to, because they're so good at what they do. And that still exists in us. We're only human after all. We're not music-making machines. We're actually just human beings, and music is emotion, and that's vulnerable. So, I mean, maybe not for everyone, but for me, it certainly is emotional to make music, so... Well,
I think it's probably healthy, to a degree, of course, in that it probably means that you're realizing that there's room to grow. So you're not on this like level where you think you're superior and there's nothing you can learn from anyone. So there's that element. It shows you care, that you want to do better. These are things I try to tell myself to help me through it when I get to those moments. Because I think inevitably in any project, even in a band practice, there's a point where I just say like, oh my God, why am I singing? Or like, why am I the one playing the guitar here? Like, this is a big mistake. But you find your way around it a little bit, with often the help of other people.
Yeah. And then there is this thing that people say, which is absolutely true in my case anyways. The more you learn, the more you know that you don't know, or the more you know, the more you, whatever. But it really is true. The more you learn about music production or music making or whatever, the more you realize that, this is a very big thing, and there's tons to learn. And for some people, maybe that's daunting. For me personally, it's like, yay, I have so much more to learn. But I know we're all different in this. But for the people who think it's daunting, then come and visit us over at Music Weeklies. We won't judge, and we'll share your piece.
I'm both of those people. I get excited, and then I also go, oh my goodness. This road is way longer than I thought it was.
I bought an FM synth 2 years ago that I've played with 3 times, I think. And that's daunting to me. Like, I'm trained as a classical pianist and singer. And then synths are, I don't know. I don't understand. And then that's daunting, absolutely.
Which synth did you get?
The Volca FM.
Oh, cool.
And I started
have one
because
of
I knew
those.
nothing about synth. I went straight to FM, which is the hardest, I guess.
Yes,
so I've
you
heard.
really went in. I was
But
going
of course-
to try to make you feel a little better that, yeah, of course, that
yeah.
is notoriously difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The Volca
But,
does a nice job in, you know, I have a DX7 that doesn't work so well anymore. I think it might need a battery. They had a battery in it, oddly. I could not figure out how to program that thing at all. And the Volca is better, but still it is a very bizarre kind of synthesis where there's so many surprises around every corner, and sometimes it's the tiniest turn of a knob and like it just explodes on you.
I'm not yet there even. That's how big this sounds. But I'm also having to tell myself that it's okay to just turn the knobs and see what happens.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
won't break anything.
because I have an academic background and I tend to go in and like, ooh, FM synthesis is logic formulae. I know this is interesting. And then it's like, if then that like what I did in academia was linked to philosophy of science. So I start going, oh, it's like the modus ponens logical formulae or whatever.
Okay.
And then really all I need to do is not analyze that so much and just sit there and, okay, there's a button here. What does that do? Ooh.
I'm glad I'm totally unaware any of that's going on.
Yeah. Well, it came with a little chart and you see all the algorithms.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what I find daunting is to try and understand how that algorithm turns into sound, because I understand the logics of the algorithm, but I don't know what it actually does with the sound. So that's where I just have to free myself from the chart, maybe, just pick it up and just play around, not mean anything serious with it, because I still want to learn it or learn to use it. But there is something to not putting too much weight on that and just, okay, for now it's just a toy.
I had a big breakthrough realizing, it was with Ableton Live actually, when I was learning MIDI mapping, just like mapping my knob to a fader. I realized that I'm not going to break anything. I can just delete this project and start over or open a new one and nothing will break. So it just opened up the door for me because I was very nervous. I was afraid I'd change a setting in the program and then it would never work again, right? And, not to mention that I was using cracked versions at that time, exploring the dark corners of the internet to get that stuff. So I always had that fear. It was one of the great reliefs of like finally realizing how unethical it was to have cracked software is that there's always this sort of like little voice in your head saying like, maybe this thing is going to infect my computer, or maybe it's not working right because it's cracked. And when you get the real software, at least you know what you're dealing with. So
yeah, and if you break anything, you can probably just re-download it and install it again.
You can just go about it the right way, yeah.
Yeah.
So
but I agree
knowing
that
helped a
learning
lot.
Learning controller mapping for me was like wow, I actually managed to do this stuff. And if I can do that, then I don't need to be so insecure about my mastering skills, because there is at least one skill set that I have sorted down and that I understand. So it's also a matter of just finding your strengths and then focusing on those instead of no one who's made music like me for 4 years in a DAW, no one is going to know all the ins and outs of the things. I don't have an education in audio engineering, I don't know. But I can do some things, and those I can manage.
Right.
And then other things I'm not so good at, and that's okay.
Well, I like that you use the word play, to have a play with it, play around with it. Because sometimes I think we forget that we're playing music.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said, especially when you're playing around with FM synthesis, something that complicated, or even just your DAW and your MIDI mapping, like to just have a good time with it, see what happens, not to always worry about it.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself.
That's key. I'm trying to get back to playing piano these days and to singing, because I've had a big, long break. And it's important to just really just have fun. And we do music because we like music, and music expression, I presume, that most people who make music like to express themselves with music. So for me, it's also important to just try to focus on the expression and the fun and the enjoyment and the flow that I get. Not so much on the product, especially now that I haven't really sung in a couple of years because I've had some health issues. Yeah, that was COVID. It's great.
Oh, boy,
Anyways,
sorry to hear that.
trying to get back to singing,
Yeah.
and I have like a 1-octave register at the moment, which is nothing. And just trying to not think so much about the notes that I can't hit or the way that my voice isn't like before, but just focusing on how good it feels in my body when I actually sing something. So it's a focus thing. I mean, it's not just a focus thing. It's the world is so, I don't know. We pitch correct stuff. We make music sound so plastic these days that, of course, we're all going to have anxiety with making something that doesn't sound exactly like the mainstream format.
Yeah.
But that format isn't necessarily the most freeing format to go for.
Sure. Well, I think it's the same syndrome we get staring at like supermodels all day long and then looking in the mirror and being like, hey, how come I'm not airbrushed and perfect and all of that? So
What? You're not?
there's so much of that, like that comparison and hearing that slick. I like the word plastic is a good word for it. It's everything.
I mean,
is very
that's what I
shiny
picture in my head.
Yeah.
When I hear ultra compressed, auto-tuned, glammy pop songs. I'm sorry, I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings, and it's catchy and it's fun to listen to, but it also makes me a little sad inside because that's not the music that I produce with my body. Let's say when I sing or play piano, it's something much more full of faults technically, or more alive, basically.
Yeah, those are the things I like too. And I even find myself purposely like re-injecting them into my music, finding ways to almost make it worse, but because I like that better. Yeah,
I mean, and my partner is an experimental musician, and that's been eye-opening to just really see more of what's possible to actually make music from. It's incredible what you can really make music from if you free yourself a little bit from the limitations. So,
Well, as you said, not being so worried about the product, but the experiment of it.
Yeah.
And
you can always delete everything. It's just, I'm an infamous deleter of projects that are clogging my computer.
Oh, yeah?
And some people are not like that, I know. And I don't know, it's just for me, it's like a good riddance. I don't have to I'll save the things that I like. But we all have these 8 bars that we started and then doesn't get anywhere. And those, when I open those, I can tell, I'm never going to need to listen to this again, and then I just delete it. But
I like that.
we're all different.
I want to live more that way in every aspect of my life. Just, why do we have 16 towels? Or like, just the kitchen drawer is full of plastic forks because like I don't want to throw them out. It feels like a waste to use them again, but like suddenly there's just too many of them and they can't shut the drawer anymore.
I know. I have
like
this problem I do have. But no, it's about finding your way in the jungle of music making, right? And it's ultimately, for me, it's important to keep the focus on, I do this because I enjoy doing it and because it gives me something. And the rest is just extra fluff. And I mean, for me, fans are like, it's nice that people listen to my music, and I understand that this is what motivates a lot of people. But for me personally, it's the making of the music that's important. So.
Right. Yeah,
but again,
cool.
We're all different.
Yeah. There's a big part of that I love, of course. and it's fun, but somewhere along the line we get very serious about our fun, and then the fun suddenly isn't there anymore.
Yeah, and what I think is most damaging is when we start introducing good and bad in terms of music. Like, this music is good because it hit the mainstream, or this music is bad because someone didn't know mastering to perfection. And that's not at all what music is about. I don't think music has any value innately, like moral value or whatever we should call it. Like, is it good? Is it bad? It's just music. It's just intonation, or it's totally after tune, or it's, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's all music, and it's all valuable, and it all has the potential to give us something. So
I find it to be a really interesting art form, especially when you're not recording. You know, when you're recording, then it's a thing, right? It's something, and you can analyze it. But when you're doing it and it's just happening and it's gone as soon as it arrived, there's you know, I can't think of too many things in the world that are like that, where it becomes the point of it is just the thing itself and not what it does or what it becomes. You go through it not to get to the end necessarily either, because then why wouldn't we just play the end of the song? We'll just play the final chord. True. Ta-da! But the point is to go through it and have it pass away, really. Yeah. It's a very in the moment thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that's why people like going to live shows as well. It's this ephemeral experience, but it is a meaningful thing. So.
I want to bring up the project that you initially reached out to me for, that I think is embodies a lot of the like really cool things about the music weeklies that we've been talking about, and also takes the lemons of the world that we've had lately in the last 2 years, these challenging times, and makes the lemonade out of it. The Faraway Handshake project. Can you tell us about that? Because this is such a cool idea and it's so communal. I love it.
Yeah, it started with Andrew, who's also in Music Weeklies, and I. We wrote a song initially for a game, but we kept the rights. So this is just a message to everyone. This is how you should do it if possible. Always keep the rights to your music. But yeah, we kept the rights to do with it what we wanted, except for, you know, we couldn't use the actual game thing or use it for another game. But we decided we wanted to take the song, which was kind of a sweet, sentimental ballad thing, in the style of, I don't know, 70s soft rock, maybe, to begin with. And we wanted to see if someone wanted to play it with us. Because I'd written it in a DAW, and Andrew had written the lyrics. And there was a vocalist who recorded the vocals, and the rest was just me putting fake violin on it and stuff. The lyrics are kind of suitable because the pandemic hit when we decided to do this. So the lyrics are very, we can get through it, and sort of motivational lyrics.
It's called Pushing Forward.
Yes, that's the name of the song. And we decided we would put up a sign-up sheet that we posted on Twitter. And because we're both in Music Weeklies, quite some folks from the challenge signed up. And we basically just wrote, what's your name? Which instruments do you play? And what's your Twitter handle, basically. So we got a bunch of sign-up people. We ended up with the resulting 16 people who ended up recording the song. There were no auditions or anything, but we sat there with 7 guitars and 4 drummers and and 7 vocalists and I don't know what. And then luckily, most of the people were really flexible and had put more instruments. So we ended up with an instrumentation that I think was very, very interesting to arrange, which was, we have 1 drummer. We stuck to 1 drummer, 2 bassists, 4 guitars. There is And then a bunch of the people who played guitar and or drums could also play violin, melodica, harmonica. And then we have a 8-bit chiptune synth player who wrote the piece in a tracker. And then there is the synth pads and 4 vocalists. I think that's it. Yeah. So it was a mixed bag of instruments to arrange something that was originally a little sort of sappy, sentimental violins, pop ballad or rock ballad. And then we just wanted to make it into something. So we took whatever we had, or the people who volunteered to do it, and we made it work. And then people recorded their thing over at their place. No big, you didn't have to have a big setup, just whatever you had. And the only thing we asked that they didn't do too much processing, so that we would get like as clean as possible a recording. And then they sent it to me, and I stitched it all together, and it turned into this song. And then someone volunteered to do mixing and mastering as well in the group, so it's really nice. We did it all on we bunched up together and helped each other get this thing done. And then, it was really, really interesting. And it was the first time I have live musicians play my music. Oh, and cool. That was so gratifying. It was I got like the first guitar part was one of them came in really quickly. And the feeling that when someone else plays your music, it's so, I don't know, I was floored. I was very humbled by the whole experience. So it was a beautiful thing.
What was the overall time frame from when you put this out on Twitter to when it was just released just a few days ago, really, right?
Yes. We started in May 2 years ago, I think.
Okay.
And then in the meantime there, with the recordings, we asked them to be done by over the summer. And then we had quite a few complications in that I got the long COVID situation, so my energy levels were a bit meh. And then some people volunteered, or one person volunteered to mix, but then he had to move out of the country and there was a lot of complications there. So we had to find someone else who could do the mixing. And then that person is a pro, but she had limited time. So we had to, it stretched out because we run into some problems that we needed to sort of edit out. And she only had very limited time here and there. So overall it took it took a year and a half from start to finish. But yeah, that was just the way it had to be, and we aren't in the mainstream machine, so I mean we're doing this together as a team, and people were patient, thankfully. So now we have this song that every time I listen to it, I can't believe I wrote the music. That's how I feel about it. And that's to be recommended.
Well, you didn't have just one person either. You all over. Lots of people all over the world.
The countries is pretty amazing. We had Scotland, France, Mexico, Norway, the US, Finland, Germany, Australia, Belgium, the Netherlands, someone in Japan, and someone in Lebanon. So it was a good project in that sense.
Pretty much all the corners there. Did you have people sign up? Was it like a Google form you set up?
Yeah.
Yeah? Great. I love it.
Very low bar.
Yeah.
Nothing big.
What I like is anyone could do that, So if there's anyone out there like thinking of this, like the tools are available to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you supply the music to people? Was there like a sketch recording or was it sheet music?
Yeah. Because I wrote it for the game, so we had a recording already, and I had a mock-up. So I sent the mock-up out for people to listen to decide if they wanted to play it or not. So with the sign-up sheet, we posted a mock-up. And then I had already made some sheet music for the vocals. So we had sheet music for parts of it, and I made the rhythm section, or the bass, drums, and piano, got like just the chords and the guitars. And then I wrote more specific lines for the more individual instruments, if you will, the violin and the melodica and the chiptune and the backup vocals and everything. So I sent it out both as sheet music and as MIDI files, because some people don't read music. So then, but everyone who came together on this are composers already, because, I think everyone we met in this corner of Twitter. That was where we posted the sign-up. So those are the people who would see it. So everyone had a DAW already, as far as I know. So it was just, let's send out some chords, send out some MIDI files, and send out some sheet music for the people who do read music. And then people were just told to interpret it the way they wanted. We didn't put any restriction on what kind of synth they should pick up. We said pads to one, and then, whatever they could make of it, really. And then we, I don't know, there was some limitations, like don't put on too much effects, and don't do like the over distorted electric guitar situation. But then, people just gave it their interpretation, and it turned out really well. I'm really pleased. Still, every time I listen to it, I'm like, wow, people did this for me or for us, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
What did you guys start with? Did you have like the drummer play something? Was it the chords? Was there like a tempo given? I'm curious just about the like logistics of it, because it is when you go to collaborate with anybody, really, there's like certain things that have to be figured out. Now you have quite a few people on this, so there's that has to be clear, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, everyone got the mock-up. So the mock-up had the right BPM and everything, and then they basically played along, I think, mostly. And we just let people play whenever they could, so there wasn't an order to it. They had the mock-up with a click, and then they could just send it. So the first things that we got were the electric guitar solos. And then I know the bassists waited for the drummer, because they would like to have the drums so they could sync up. So once the drummer got his recording in, then we sent that to the bassists and the pianist, I think, and then they could also play so that it synced with the drums. Other than that, we of course did some editing, but we actually tried to limit the amount of editing, because I'm not a fan of the plastic fantastic, as we were talking about. So it's supposed to sound live, because we're alive. That's basically my thought. So we had to sync stuff up so that it actually worked, but it's not too tightly edited, so there is room for having a little bit of a leeway in tempo, and we didn't pitch correct other than notes that were actually faulty, let's say. So I had a line where I'd actually just sung the wrong note because it was a quick note or whatever, and I didn't hit it entirely. So then I pitched it to as close as possible. But I not a huge fan of equal temperament, for those who know what that is,
right.
Which is basically what they do to make a piano work in all keys and signatures, but which on for instance, other instruments, they're more locked to a scale. And when you do equal temperament, you take something that isn't normally sung or performed like that, and you force it into a scheme so that it fits a piano. And it's very practical for when you use a MIDI keyboard and synths, and I don't know, but I didn't want to follow that too rigidly. And it's just because I'm especially interested in tuning. But so we left it with a little bit of feeling of actual live singers and live players, and it feels good, and it still sounds okay, even if we didn't pitch corrected to sound perfect.
I find a lot of times when I have a guitar, say, in a composition that maybe is created with like a lot of synths or like VST instruments that are perfect all the time. Sometimes the guitar, which is never perfect, it's the it's a piece of wood, so it's temperamental, and sometimes things won't sound right unless I mess with the tuning of the virtual instruments, and they get messed up. I think it's interesting you bring that up about the equal temperament. I took a course on Bach in college. I didn't get a music degree or anything, but every elective I could fill with a music class, I did that, and one of them was a Bach class. And they demonstrated that with a harpsichord. And they had the harpsichord, I think they called it mean tone or mean tone, something like that. It was what the harpsichord was in, and it sounded like really nice in the key of A, let's say. And then he played it in C, and you're like, that doesn't sound right. And I guess it was the big like kind of technological revolution. Bach came out with the well-tempered clavier, and you could play it was all 12 keys. So he was able to demonstrate like there was like a sort of like shininess or something to A on the harpsichord tuned to B in tune on A. Whereas on the other, I think he had two harpsichords, and one of them was tuned where each note was equally spaced from the next note. And, it sounded in tune and everything, but there was like some sort of almost like sparkle to the harpsichord that was in that original tuning.
Yeah, I find that too. And I'm a singer primarily. I mean, I play piano too, and it's useful for being a pianist to have equal temperament. But as a singer, I know when I record myself, I have this specific intonation that I want. It's like a specific gap between notes that I want on the dot. And when I then run it through Melodyne or Flex Pitch in Logic then it just sounds all wrong, even if it's then glued perfectly to all the MIDI instruments. But it doesn't sound right when it's actually a live person performing a piece of music and it's equal tempered. It's very strange. And I guess also singers, apparently it turns out singers base themselves off what's called just intonation, which is nature's overtone series. So all tones have innate notes in there that you can't hear them so much, but they're all in there. And it's a fixed series. You can see them when you look at the spectrum. You kind of see the little spikes. Yeah. Yes, and it's always it's a fixed series. So it's always like you have the root note, and then you have the octave, and then I think you have the octave again, and then the fifth, and then the third, and then it comes up and it moves up into the register, and then the highest ones you can't hear them; they're so high, but they keep going. That's in us I don't know, that's physics. It's just what it is, and we as humans are apparently tuned into that. So singers base themselves off this, which we in Norwegian call nature tones, but that doesn't work for equal temperament. So that's why instruments are locked to specific keys, is because they have the specific intervals or the gaps between the information in the notes. It's built in. And
is that a little more with
really good.
With like brass instruments?
I'm not very familiar with brass instruments, but I know that this is why they do the tuning in the orchestra, I think. If you've ever been to like a orchestral concert, there is always here's the tune in before they start playing. And I'm not very familiar with the actual instruments that are tuned like that. I know my dad plays a sax, and it's more or less equal temperament, although it's tuned into a specific key as well. So I'm not sure.
I'll have to find someone to talk to on the podcast about the temperament and stuff, because it is really interesting. And I think the next time I sing a bad note in practice or something, I'll reference this nature tone discussion.
Yes, do that.
It's really actually the right tone, guys. It's
I hear it in my head.
Yeah,
it's
you
physics.
guys need to pay more attention.
Yeah. Well, I actually found out that Logic that I use has a tuning setting called Her Mode tuning. It's German, I think. Her Mode, or I don't know. But for people who use Logic and they want to explore this more, there is this setting, and it changes as long as there is a chord progression somewhere in the track, and it can be muted, it doesn't have to sound out. Then the algorithm will recalculate the right. So there is a fixed distance in nature between a root note and a fifth, for instance. And it is so and so many numbers of hertz, for instance, between certain things. And then in this mode, instead of having equal distance between all the notes, which isn't in the nature scale, then it recalculates for each chord so that inside each chord, the distance between the root note and the fifth are the right one for nature, let's say. And it's actually amazing how good it sounds compared to equal temperament. It does create some wonky sounding pianos though, so then you can switch it off for the pianos, for instance. But it's really interesting. There is a lot of stuff coming into our DAWs these days that is fun to play around with.
I'll have to explore that. I didn't ever know that was an option in Logic. You are seeing more and more like micro tuning, and even in synthesizers and things. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think more and more DAWs are getting it. I know Logic has it and Cubase has it. I wonder if there was one more that got it recently. Maybe it was Ableton. I don't know.
I don't
and
think
it's
it
called
was
Her
Ableton.
Mode.
Unless they found a Max for Live way to do it. I'm not aware of that.
No, yeah. Well, you're the Ableton teacher, so.
And if I'm wrong, it's probably because it came out after we recorded this episode.
Oh,
we'll
yes,
say.
yes.
We'll blame it on that.
Yeah, let's say that.
But that's fun. I'd like to hear that, just, how that feels.
There is a website, I don't remember the address, but it's something hermode.net, or I don't know. It's just do a search for Hermode tuning, and there is a whole website dedicated to describing the algorithm. It's way too complicated for me to read, but it's like a 30-page script to how the formation of the algorithm. And they also have examples of an orchestra playing a specific piece with and without Hermode tuning. This is all digital, so it's not a live orchestra, but it's like a MIDI orchestration, I guess. And you can really hear that sparkle that you were talking about. It's actually pretty noticeable. So, but don't feel bad if you don't hear it. It's hard to catch if you're not deeply into tuning. So, it's no imposter syndrome needed. But if people are into tuning and want to train their ears a little bit, this is a good place to look it up and listen to different examples. And there are tons of other scales to play with as well. And I'm sure most big DAWs have the settings that you can change the scale that the MIDI is tuned to, or whatever it is.
Well, there is something nice when things are a little bit out of tune, and there's something a little stiff and strange when they're perfectly in tune. It's almost like it's harder to discern between the notes when everything is locked into 0.0 cent.
Yeah.
On your, when you look at it, everything is just locked in so much. It almost just, it does take on a weird, fake, almost synthetic quality.
Yeah. And I have the same beef with compression.
Yeah.
Compression is useful, but maybe this is my classical background, but I'm used to dynamics. I like the dynamic information in music. It's nice to have ebb and flow. So for music, for pushing forward, when we ended up, I finalized the mix with my partner, and we ended up actually only putting compression on the mass. I don't remember. We let some compression stand in where it was put on the basses by the previous the mix engineer who had to do other things. She knew what she was doing, and she's a bass player, so she put some really excellent compression on the basses, for instance, and on other stuff. But we left that in because it made a difference in the sound. But for dynamics, we basically took it all out and just did automation. And if you give the time into putting the automation in, you can actually lose a lot of that plastic fantastic sound, because especially vocals, when they're over compressed or very compressed, they're so flat sounding, and people say it sounds squashed, and it really does. It sounds like someone just smashed it all up to the ceiling there, and it gives voice a very, to me, in my ears, a harshness that isn't there when you're actually doing it, for instance, live or in the initial recording. And that's because I'm a vocalist, I'm sure, that I have hang-ups on this. But yeah, I think compression as well makes us one step removed from what music is originally, a dynamic piece of information, let's say. Right. Both dynamic in terms of pitch, tempo, and also in terms of volume and what's it called? Expression, basically. So, yeah,
I did a lot of that myself with vocals on a recent recording I did, where I did a lot of the automation. You know, I found like it just sounded more natural, and it also allowed me to like kind of play with the expression of the voice a little bit too, where those softer parts, I could just bring them up the way I wanted to, rather than smushing the other parts down to it. And it to me, it made the vocal feel like more intimate, I guess. Like he was really there. Yeah,
I agree. And then there's always put a compressor. Yeah, it's tedious, and for some people it's not worth it. And some people maybe like that sound, but it's personal choice, really. But yeah, if people are worried about the actual odd peaks, you can put a compressor on the outbus or the stereo outbus, and it can with a high threshold. Is that what it's called? High or low? High threshold. Just this is all in English, and I'm not English speaking, so yeah. But yeah, it's worth exploring and playing around with, and an important message from me being that you don't have to do what everyone else is doing in terms of compression or pitch perfection or tempo perfection. It's actually more interesting if there is some aliveness to the music, especially if it is a performance. So, and I write game music too, and I find this a lot in game music, that people quantize to 1/16 rigidly. And then it just, after a time, because you listen to game music in loops it can go on for half an hour, it gets a bit tedious to listen to, like a drone of the same rhythm all the time, because there is no variation in it. So it's, yeah. But if people like it, they can do it. That's perfectly fine. I just tend to prefer the more dynamic and imperfect.
I agree with you. I do think there are certain styles and genres that sort of benefit from it, but especially when there are like the instruments are being played and the voices are singing. I'm with you with that. I like that too. It feels natural, feels real.
Yeah.
But there's a time and a place for everything, and that's why people can listen to the music that does that, and they can listen to what you're doing.
Yeah. And if people tend to listen to mostly compressed stuff, or in our especially pop is what I think most about when I say plastic fantastic, like the mainstream pop. But if people want to listen to something that isn't so controlled, there is always a lot of jazz out there, for instance, that can be quite easy listening. Doesn't have to be complicated jazz. But jazz very often has this dynamic quality, both in tempo and pitch and dynamics. So, hot tip.
That's cool. There are some moves to this, just last night, a friend of mine and I were playing around with like a feature in live where the tempo follows, it listens to your playing. so we were playing the drums, and I had an arpeggiated clip going, and we were changing the tempo with the beat. And, you know, it works pretty well. However, like I think there's only so much you can ever expect from that, because even a human being is constantly adjusting to the other players. So it's also constantly adjusting. So there are times where it feels a little off. But all in all, I was pretty blown away with it. I was like, wow, like this is a way I can kind of like have my cake and eat it too and get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's a great feature. I don't know it specifically, but I know Ableton is good for performances, right? So
Yeah, it's designed really so that like you can have the music, the backing track, say, following you instead of you following that. And they've always, or at least since I can remember, had a feature where you can record something and then you put like your warp markers in, which would normally time stretch the audio. But instead you flip a switch and you are now stretching the grid to fit your music. So if you speed up, the grid speeds up. And if you slow down, the grid slows down. Instead of changing your performance, you change the grid, which is really cool. And Logic, you can do that with like flex time.
Yeah. Well, there is something called vari speed as well, which
Vari speed, maybe.
Which
Is there flex time?
shapes
Am I
to your
mistaken?
audio. So it literally changes the BPM, I think, during a track. I've tried it a few times. It's kind of fun. But
Yeah, when I was doing Logic, I was playing around with that, where I'd play the drums and then have things. It was a little tedious to get it to work because you had to really tell it, but it was cool it was worth it to me.
yeah, and I think there is, in the recent updates, I don't really do much apart from this project. I'm not that much of an audio in. I do a lot in the box, and then there's just vocals. But there is also something called Smart Tempo, I think now, that flexes this for you.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
I'm gonna have to dig into Logic again.
things are getting better in all the DAWs, I think.
They really are. I can't even believe like the powers we have these days. It's incredible.
I can't believe they just thought we were going to make music on paper when I was young, because the limitations by writing stuff on a piece of paper is it's
sure.
that never made me tick.
We really don't know what all those great classical pieces would have sounded like.
No,
I
exactly.
equate it to like looking at Shakespeare in text. Those weren't even written down until after he was dead.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know.
And we don't even know how did he say the line? You know, what word did he emphasize? How fast? How slow? How close was this character to the other character? Like, there's 100,000 variables you don't get in the page. And it's the same with written music.
Yeah, that's why I never got into it, because I couldn't hear the harmonies. I mean, I'm fine with writing and reading music as such, but it didn't make me really understand what it was that I was writing, to comprehend what it sounded like. They did teach us DAW as well. This was in 1997, and we actually were working in, at that time it was called Logic Audio on a PC.
Magic, right?
So it's a while ago.
Yeah.
But it
I
was
never
nothing
used
like
it,
what
but-
it is now.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah.
I'm kind of lucky that it worked out that way, because I never learned how to do that stuff, writing it on paper. So.
It's tedious. That's all I have to say about it. It didn't make me write any music except from in the subject itself. So yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I think we want to wrap this up, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We should tell people, that, of course, to go to the Music Weeklies challenge. That you can, if you write that in Music Weeklies, that's LIES at Weeklies.
Yes. Yeah.
You'll find it. It'll come right up. There's a webpage too, musicweeklieschallenge.com. I want to send people to your site too, which is your last name.no. So it's SCHENCK.no.
Yeah.
Schenck.no.
Sorry about that.
It's my fault. I'm the one that's not, in Norway. So,
no one understands this name. It's fine.
so that'd be a great place to go. And then and all these will be in the show notes, of course, as they always are. We'll put the link to the last episode we did too, which was a lot of fun. And then the track Pushing Forward by Faraway Handshake, which is a cool name for this project.
Oh yeah, we actually had to do a little bit of a vote for that because we were so many people.
Right.
So we had a Google poll for the name, and everyone voted. It was very democratic, and there was someone who came up with this brilliant name, and it was like a faraway handshake, the whole project. So yeah,
it's like kind of like how we have to do things now.
Yeah.
When we greet people, we don't know how to. Everything we used to do is all weird now. yeah. Hopefully this will soon be over. But if you need a motivational anthem, this is the song for you. Yeah. Well, it's good to have that. I mean, at a time that could certainly use it.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention that Music Weeklies, if you're not on Twitter but you're interested in seeing what we do, we also have a SoundCloud profile with the same handle. And people can check out what kind of music there is, and if they like what they hear, they can sign up. If they're not on Twitter, consider signing up on Twitter and joining the challenge. But if people want to hear what kind of submissions there are, then go and check that out. We have so many composers now, over 100 people, I think, or more, way more, I think, have taken part in the challenge over time. So it's a lot of different stuff to listen to, and maybe help with imposter syndromes.
Yeah, we all feel it.
We do, absolutely.
We all do. So it's normal. Don't worry about it, everyone.
Absolutely.
There's some sort of existential philosophical question of who are we anyway you can start wrestling with too if you want, but we all deal with it.
I mean, it makes
just
us human.
make your music. Have fun.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It was
really great talking to you again, Tina.
Again.
Yeah. And we'll be doing a Music Weeklies challenge together, we should say. I'll mention this probably in the beginning in a little intro, but I think that'll be March 4th, we said. But I look forward to that and being a part of that. Thanks for having me to do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be very cool. The previous one we did was amazing. Junk Drawer was the previous one, just for people if they wonder what it was. Brian told us all to go in our junk drawer and make field recordings and make music from the field recordings. So it's fun. I'm just saying.
It is fun.
Yeah.
It is fun. It's good to have a project. You know, there's always why like art class at school was fun. It gets you to make something within certain parameters. So great. So check out those sites and have fun. Get involved in the community. That's what it's all about. Sharing and being part of each other's work and lives. Thanks for being so big into that and giving that to so many people. That's a great contribution, and I'm sure it means more to people than you'll probably ever get to know. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Same.
And have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.